We welcome in our weekly guest here on Friday, senior producer from NFL Films, Greg Cosell, whose weekly segment is presented by Scott Lawnyard, an official commercial site work partner of the Buffalo Bills. And Greg, this one is a biggie. I know we also have Ravens Steelers this week, but I think this one takes the cake when you consider it's going out to the entire country at 4:25 this afternoon.
Yeah, that's the way we
Or
felt,
Sunday afternoon.
Brownie, because this was our Part D, our final segment in the matchup show, and it was a full segment game, so we kind of felt the same way. We did the Steelers-Ravens also as a full segment game to start the show, but normally our Part 4 segment is the one that's the most watched and the most talked about, so we did Bills-Chiefs there.
Yeah.
Greg, no Harrison Butker in this game. They have signed the Jets practice squad kicker, Spencer Schrader. Does this impact the game at all for the Chiefs?
That's hard to say, Maddie. I guess it could in terms of where they might go for a field goal, because obviously Butker's one of the best in the league and has a big leg, and I don't think they think twice about 57, 58-yard field goal attempts when he's there. And based on what we were just talking about, weather's not going to be an issue, so wind shouldn't be a factor. So with Butker, you know, it expands the field goal options. I don't know anything. I'm not a field goal guy, so I don't know much about kickers. So I don't know how they would feel about this guy in that kind of situation.
Yeah, the matchup I'm fascinated with in this one, Greg, concerns McDuffie, because since Jalen Watson got injured, he has played more outside and not in the slot where we have become accustomed to seeing him all the time. But with Dalton Kincaid out, Amari Cooper's being listed as questionable, although he said personally he's optimistic that he will play on Sunday. I tend to think that this is a week where we're probably going to see McDuffie right back in the slot again, trying to lock down Khalil Shakir, who I would anticipate, without Kincaid in the lineup, is their number one guy to take care of.
Well, I think that'll be that. What you just brought up is something I've been thinking about, because the one thing I did notice in the last game against Indianapolis is even when Kincaid went out, and I guess he tried to play and played one snap in the second half and then said, I can't do this.
Yeah.
Is they still played with 12 personnel quite a bit. Morris ended up playing more than 25 snaps. So what we don't know, or I don't know, maybe you guys have a better idea, is could they still play a lot out of 12 personnel? Now, obviously, Shakir would probably still be on the field as one of the wide receivers. So, you know, we don't know what that means for McDuffie. But, I don't know. And I think that's a big issue in the game, big factor in the game, not an issue, factor as to whether the Bills line up in 12 personnel as a foundation or play more 11 personnel, particularly since Coleman will be out. And as we're speaking on a Friday afternoon, I guess we don't know for sure about Cooper. So we don't know the answer to that. To me, the bigger issue, and you may be getting to this anyway, but I'll be the segue here, is the way that Steve Spagnuolo uses his defensive backs as blitzers, probably better than any coach, defensive coordinator in the league. And you have to be really careful formationally, because if you start lining up wide receivers close to your formation, particularly in long yardage situations and definitely on third down, then you better be prepared for defensive backs to blitz.
Yeah.
So this Chiefs defense, they do allow yards to tight ends. They're one of the best run defenses in the NFL, allowing just an average of like 83 rushing yards per game. They rank middle of the pack in terms of passing yards per game when they allow an average of 206.7 per game. Where is the area here that you can get the best of this defense? We know how hard they are up front with the defensive lineman and Chris Jones, and you got some good linebackers in there as well. Is there an area that can be had against this defense?
Well, I don't know if it's an area as much as a down and distance. And this is not a profound statement, because this is what you want to not be in against any defense. But their defense is particularly tough if you get into third down situations, and particularly if it's 3rd and 6+. Then it's really, really difficult, because they play dime. And the pressure they put on, Jamari Conner has become a really key piece of their defense, number 27. He's kind of a hybrid linebacker safety. In fact, I think he made an interception, was it last year in the regular season game? But he's a really, really good player. And he's a blitzer, he's a cover player. And again, as I said, the use of defensive backs in pressure. So it's like I said, it's not profound to say that you want to stay out of third and long, but particularly so against a defense like the Chiefs. So now, to me, and I'm not Joe Brady, and I'm not as smart as he is when it comes to what he wants to do. But now your normal down and distance play calling to me becomes critical, and how you want to attack this defense.
And speaking of that, and look, last week, I'm watching a double corner blitz from the Chiefs, and it ended up
Oh
being a
yeah,
sack on Bo Nix. I was like, I don't know if I've ever seen that before. Two corners blitzing at once. That was nuts. But maybe to combat that, Greg, something that the Bills have used with great effectiveness this season is their jumbo package with Alec Anderson as a sixth offensive lineman. Last week, they
yeah,
even used it with a tight end. So you got 7 guys on the line of scrimmage. And
yeah.
what it seemed to do to the Colts anyway was really, because then they put one of the tight ends in motion. Sometimes they'll even put Anderson in motion, and it screws up the gap assignments of the defense when you have 7 guys up on the line. And then on top of that, they used a little play action off of it last week against the Colts, and that worked too. So might that be a way to maybe combat some of this defensive back cleverness with blitzing and stuff? I know that's usually jumbo package is usually first and second down, not third down.
Right.
But I'm wondering if that's how they stay in manageable down and distance to avoid that.
Well, it's clearly foundational to what they do, Brownie. We know that they play with 6 offensive linemen. They've done that more than any team in the league. They do it at least 10 times every game. I would doubt that they're all of a sudden going to not use it against the Chiefs. This is sort of what they do. So the question is, what do you do with it? Normally, you do one of two things. Normally it's a running play, or you have some kind of play action shot play element, because you know you in theory, you have protection because you have 6 offensive linemen, and then if you use a tight end, you have 7 in primary protection. So you will definitely see it. They just have to be able to be successful with it. And I went back and looked at the divisional playoff game last year. Their longest play in that game was 18 yards. And I know the game was close, and we all know about the game, but I'm sure Buffalo fans remember it even better than I do. But the bottom line is, it's very difficult to compete if your longest offensive play is going to be 18 yards. They're going to need to find a way, whether it's through a shot play out of jumbo, whether it's just normal pass game. They're going to need to have a more plays that go beyond 18 yards. I think you guys would agree with that, wouldn't you?
Yeah, and I mean, Diggs had one in his hands, and he dropped it at the end of the game last year. That was a shot play.
A really big play. Yeah.
Yeah.
Flipping it to Buffalo's defense and how they can beat Patrick Mahomes and this offense that they have, it's not like this offense has been high-flying this year. I mean, they're averaging only 24 points per game, and they're sneaking wins in. That's how they got to 9-0. I mean, 8 of their 9 wins have been comeback victories. So when you look at how the Chiefs operate on offense, you've got a running back in Kareem Hunt who's been averaging 23 touches per game. Patrick Mahomes' numbers have gone up since DeAndre Hopkins has been a part of this roster, but they kind of grind out their way down the field. They'll get a chunk play here, a chunk play there, and then they'll convert a third and short. They rank first in the NFL in terms of third down conversions. The Bills are a defense that will allow you to have a few yards here, a few yards there. They just don't want anything to go over the top of them. Do the Bills have to play a little bit different on defense because the Chiefs operate on offense exactly like how they're going to play them?
Again, I don't think you'll change dramatically what you do, okay? Mm-hmm. I mean, I would think not. Now, I could be wrong. I'm certainly not Sean McDermott, but the Chiefs, Maddie, are sort of an enigma wrapped in a riddle here offensively, because they lead the NFL in time of possession and in third down conversions, but they don't score many touchdowns. Think of it this way. The Ravens lead the NFL with 39 touchdowns. The Bills have 32. The Chiefs have 23. They are way down the list. And when they get in the red zone, they don't score. Their touchdown efficiency is way down, which, by the way, it was last year as well through 10 weeks. So they're really a tough offense to figure. Now, you always have, just like everybody talks about the Josh Allen factor, you always have the Mahomes factor. So it's not as if they can't explode at any given time, and then Mahomes, he can make special plays just like Josh can. But for the most part this season, they've not really been very good when they get in the red zone, and they've not been very good scoring touchdowns. So they're a team that controls the ball, has long drives, but doesn't score a lot of touchdowns. So I don't think you want to give Mahomes the opportunity, with one-on-one coverage. Obviously, the Bills are not a heavy man-to-man team. They're a high percentage, two high safety structure team. I would think that's not going to change. I would think they're going to believe that they can line up with seven in the box and defend the run game. I think that's what they'll believe. Brownie, wouldn't you feel the same way about that?
Yeah, I don't see them changing their spots tremendously here. And that brings me to another question about the defense, because the other advantage I could see them exploiting is the edges of their pass protection. Obviously, the Chiefs know it's a problem. Mahomes has been sacked 8 times the last 2 games, and it's not just Wanye Morris who's dealing with a bone bruise in his knee. It's the rookie that has to come in and play for him sometimes, and Sua Mataya. And then even on the other side, Jawan Taylor isn't any great shakes either. So with the way Greg Rousseau has played the last month, I would like to think that's an advantage. And look, the Chiefs may put a tight end on one side, they may chip, but can they really pay that much attention to both edges of their protection scheme and account for everything? I don't think they can. I like that matchup.
No, I do too. But then the issue becomes, and I remember when the Chiefs were on Monday night, it was probably a few weeks ago, and I was watching the Manning cast, and all Bill Belichick spoke about was the discipline with how you have to rush, that you cannot let Mahomes either outside or up the middle. So it's not so much that Rousseau can beat either Taylor at right tackle or Morris/Sua Matei at left tackle. He can, but it's the discipline of your entire rush. You just cannot let Mahomes do what he does, because the bottom line is, one of the reasons they're so good on third down is because this is what he does. You get to 3rd and 8 and you feel like you cover well, you feel like you're playing good defense, and then he runs for 10 yards and they keep the ball. So I agree that there's individual matchups that they can probably be effective with, but you just have to be really careful with your discipline in how you rush. And that's hard. That's always easier said than done.
One more for me. Both of these teams on offense are in the minus in the first quarter. If you look at their point margin, the Bills rank 17th, and the Chiefs rank a little bit lower than that. They're 20th. Is a big factor in this game scoring points in the first quarter, because both teams have struggled to do so throughout the season?
Well, everybody wants to do that. When you put your game plan together, whether a team actually maps out the first 15 or the first 20 or whatever approach they take, they're obviously trying to score. So, if you can get ahead, although if you get ahead of the Chiefs and it's just 7-0, they're not going to change anything they do. And Mahomes has been in every situation possible and come back. So that doesn't necessarily matter. But you obviously would love to be ahead as the game progresses. I think the way the Bills come out offensively, to me, is going to be fascinating, because there have been a lot of games this year where I think they've really been conservative with their pass game. They're not really an intermediate and downfield passing team. Now, they may have taken the approach with Josh that, hey, let's try to get him into a rhythm. Let's try to settle him down. Let's be a sustaining offense. Our run game has become a bigger factor than it has been in recent years. Let's sort of change the way we play, knowing that Josh Allen can make Josh Allen plays like that unbelievable throw to Hollins at the end of the first half last week. He can always do that in any given situation. But I think overall, foundationally, they've not really been a push it down the field pass game.
Yeah, I really think that this kicker thing could play into Andy Reid's approach offensively, because you were talking about how the line of demarcation for their kicker is probably further in than it typically would be with Bud. It also makes me wonder, Greg, does Andy Reid just say, screw it, we're going to go for it more on 4th down? Because they're pretty good on 4th down too this year.
And I think he will. I think the game flow would dictate that, Brownie, obviously, but I think for sure
Yeah.
that would factor in. If it's 4th and 3 or 4th and 4, I mean, obviously, if it's 4th and 12, no. But if it's 4th and 3 or 4,
Yeah.
and they're at they're at their own the Bills 45, let's say, or the Bills 42, I would think he would definitely consider going for it rather than try a 57, 58-yard field goal with an untested kicker.
Yeah. All right, Greg, it should be a fun one. We'll keep an eye out for you on the matchup show on ESPN. And thanks for the time as always. We'll catch up with you next week.
No, I'm looking forward to this one. Thanks, guys.